friends, it's Chari, and today we're creating a really cute Valentine card by building it with some die cuts. So my inspiration for this card was this cute little sign that I picked up at Hobby Lobby. I just thought it was adorable, and I thought it would be really fun to make a little kissing booth for a card. To build my kissing booth, I'm using some pieces from some different die sets. The awning is from the Scalloped Treat Box Springhouse add-on. I have a stitched rectangular frame, which is 2 1/4 wide, and then a stitched rectangle that is 2 1/2, so you can see it's slightly bigger. I'm using the Gotta Have Gingham Rainbow in that pink in the diagonal for my little awning. And then I will cut the rectangle frame and the rectangle from some white wood grain cardstock. And to make the most out of my cardstock, I can cut the frame, and then I'm also going to nest the other rectangle right inside, and that will give me the wood grain for the frame vertically and the wood grain for the base horizontally. So here are my 2 parts to my booth, and that frame is going to be the perfect thing to glue the bottom and the top to, and it'll all hold together nice and sturdy. So you can see how that's going to look when I layer that roof piece on top. And then I also want to make a little countertop, so I'm using this stitched border that is part of the Picket fence border die, and I've just cut that from a piece of guava cardstock, and that will layer on the top of my rectangle, and then I'll just trim it to the length that I need it to be. Now for my background or my sky, I'm using a piece of spiffy speckles paper. So I'm just laying this here to make sure it looks really nice on that paper. And then I will use a piece of green spiffy speckles for the ground. I've cut that with the largest stitched rectangle. And to fill my booth with a critter, my booth is going to have Scout in it, which is my miniature dachshund if you don't already know. So I'm using this little dog from the Happy Howloween set. But you could put any critter that you want in your kissing booth. I think the mice would be really cute, or just any lawnfawn critter that is your favorite. So of course, Scout is a black and tan dachshund, so I am going to take a little bit of time and color this the way she looks. So she has those little brown dots over her eyes, which we call baked bean eyebrows. We saw that on an Instagram reel once, and we think that's the perfect description for those little dots over her eyes. She has a brown muzzle, she has brown on her paws, and then she also has some brown right along the edges of her ears. And so that's what I put in there first, is where I want my brown to be. Now I'm going in with a dark gray. She is black, but we don't want to lose our lines in our drawing, so I'm using a dark gray. And I'm just outlining where the shadows and around some of my brown areas are. Then I'm going to go in with a lighter gray and blend those out. I am being very careful not to oversaturate my cardstock because I don't want the grays to bleed into the browns too much. I want those to stay nice and defined. But I am going to go back and forth between the colors till it looks nice and smooth. She does look very gray at this point, so you can see I'm doing a second layer of that W5 to kind of darken it up a little bit. And then I will go back to that W7 and add some more dark shadows back in there that have kind of faded away with that W5. So she's looking pretty good here, but that brown that I put is actually the lighter of the 2 browns I planned on using. She has dark brown accents, so I'm coming in with that E23 to darken up my brown areas now. So I'm adding shadow to my brown areas. And then I'll just blend it back out with the E13, which is what I used before. And then once I have her colored, I will cut her out with the coordinating die. Now for the sign on my kissing booth, I'm using this little stitch rectangle that is part of the platform pop-up. I've cut that from some ballet slipper cardstock. It was just the perfect size. And I'm going to use Henry's ABCs to spell out the words kissing booth. Now, I actually happen to have 2 sets of Henry's. This is my really old set, which is missing a lot of letters, but it allowed me to put those double letters in there. So I'm having 2 S's, 2 O's, and 2 I's, but I am going to go ahead and take them out so I can show you how this will stamp if you only have 1 set of alphabet. So I'm missing that second S, that O, and the I. I just left a space for them by using another stamp as a spacer. And then I will pull them off and just stamp them individually in those empty spaces that I left. So if you do not have 2 sets like I happen to, this is how you do it. And I'll show you that again at the end when I stamp inside my card. Now I'm just going to cut a whole bunch of hearts using the hearts dies, also the largest hearts from the Hearts and Stars of Skinny Tag die set. I'm using all the pinks from the textured canvas cardstock in the pinks, and you can see I have a bunch of hearts here. I'm not going to use all these, but it's always good to have hearts on hand. They're great to sprinkle on cards, which you know I do very, very often. So I'll keep all the ones I don't use. I've put some liquid glue on the bottom of the frame, and I'm just lining up the base of my kissing booth. I'm going to add a line across the top, which is where I'm putting this guava piece that I cut with that stitch border. You could always just cut a strip if you did not have that border die with the stitching, but the stitching is a nice detail. Then I'm just going to trim it off to where it's slightly longer than the bottom and it overhangs a little bit. Now I'm putting Scout in here so I know how much space I need between the countertop and the roof of my kissing booth. She is not glued down yet, but that just gives me a nice guide on how high I can put this. So you can see how that frame works perfect to hold these 2 pieces together. And then I will add my sign to the top. I'm going to pop the sign up with some thin foam squares so it stands out from the roof a little bit. And I do want to make sure I don't put it too tall because this is really going to fill the front of the card. Now I thought that I would decorate the front of the booth with a little heart garland. So I've got the heart garland from the new heart garland backdrop. This is actually from the portrait one, but I wanted some glittery hearts. And I have some red glitter cardstock, but I wanted it more pink because I have a lot of pink going on. So I just thought I would make my own pink glitter. So I've got some pixie dust and I am just tapping it with my Copic in the color I wanted. I'm not doing any strokes because I don't want the roughness of the glitter to ruin the tip of my pen. So if you just do like stippling and tapping it, you can make your own custom color of the glitter cardstock. I've cut the garland itself from some narwhal cardstock and I just cut off the end so that I have a heart at the beginning and the end. It was a little bit too long, but this fits perfectly with 5 little hearts hanging off that countertop. And then I can just add some dots of glue to those hearts and then add my glittery hearts I just made. You could also add some just cardstock hearts and add some glitter to them after the fact. So there are different ways of doing this. Now for the grass and building the rest of my card, I'm putting my kissing booth on here so I can see how high up I need to cut my grass. Again, this is green spiffy speckles, just cut with that stitch rectangle, and then I cut the top with the grassy border die. And then I'm going to add a little bit of freshly cut grass ink to the top using my blending brush, just to kind of darken it up and define that edge a little bit so it stands out a bit more from the background. And now I can start to assemble my little scene. So I'm going to add my grass right along the bottom. And then I'll add all of this background to a card base before I put the other elements on because they're going to be popped up with some foam squares. I decided it needed some little stitch clouds, so these are cut from the Spring Showers die set. These are my favorite to use. I just have a little stash of these tiny clouds in my drawer to just pull out whenever I need them. I just cut a whole bunch one day. So I'm using 2 of the smallest one and 1 of the medium size. I'm just tucking those behind the booth, and then I will trim off the pieces that overhang the sides. And now I'm adding some foam tape all over the back of my booth, trimming some pieces down to go behind those framed areas so that everything is supported and popped up off that background. So I've just pulled off all that liner paper and I'll add that right to my card. And I love how this really fills up the front of the card. So I won't be having a sentiment here. This is definitely a scene that fills everything. I'll put my sentiment on the inside. Now I'm ready to put Scout in the kissing booth, but she's kind of sticking up a little bit. So I'm just gonna trim off the bottom, just the white part actually below her feet, and that'll get me to where I can tuck her back there a little bit. My foam adhesive was in the way, so I couldn't tuck her as much as I wanted without trimming it. Now I'm adding some black glaze just to the eyes and the nose, and this will make them nice and shiny, and they will stand out a bit more and give her some more character. She also has this cute little white spot on her chest that just is adorable and really is her special markings, so I'm adding that with a white gel pen. And now I'm going to bring in all those hearts that I cut earlier. So it took me a little while to kind of figure out where I wanted to sprinkle them around. I thought it would be cute to have one at the top of the sign, and then sprinkle some on the roof and along the bottom. So once I figured out where I wanted their placement, varying their sizes and their colors, I am going to pick them all up, add a little bit of glue, and drop them back in their place. So I did take a bit of time to figure out where I wanted them. That's why I cut so many, because I wasn't really sure. Now this is the little sign for the cost of the kisses, and Scout gives away kisses for free. You don't even have to give her a treat or anything. She will come and give you all the love. So of course, the cost of the kisses today at Scout's Kissing Booth are free. My little sign, which was the inspiration, said 25 cents, but free or, dog treats. That's what she'll take. For the little one at the top of the sign, I'm adding a foam square since this is popped up. That way it can be supported a bit back there. And I just think that's really fun to add that to the top. And actually, I added 2 foam squares because it was popped up on the roof, and then the roof was also popped up, so it was kind of double popped there. And then I'm adding glitter to that heart on top, which is what you could have done to hearts on the garland as well, but I'm only going to add glitter to the top, add a little bit of glitter to the clouds, and then of course I have my glitter garland that I don't need to add any more to. So since there's not a sentiment on the outside of this, I'm going to add it to the inside. So I'm back to Henry's ABCs, and I'm going to write out the words pucker up. And then of course I will stamp Happy Valentine's Day underneath that. But I just thought that would be really fun to add that part to it. That actually was on my little sign at the beginning. So that was what inspired that as well. But of course, I have 2 U's in the word pucker up, so you can see I popped out that U and left the space, and then I'm moving the U over for the word up. And I don't have another P, so I'm going to use something that's similar in size to the P. I pulled out a D, and that'll allow me to put an exclamation point at the end and leave enough space for the P, the second P. So you can see I did my test stamping on my scrap piece of paper. I'm going to stamp pucker up in there, which looks really funny, missing those letters. And I'm trying to make sure that I don't let this drop and hit my desk because it does have those stickles on there and I have not allowed them to dry just yet. So I'm going to add that second P and then pull off the U and add that second U. So I'm very much doing this one-handed so that my card doesn't tip backwards and touch my desk. And then I'm also going to stamp Happy Valentine's Day right below that pucker up. This is from the Simply Celebrate Hearts stamp set, and I think that just completes that sentiment perfect. And then here is my finished card. I really love how it turned out. It is so cute with all the pinks. I love the gingham roof, and Henry's worked perfect for this sign. Scout is so adorable in there, but of course you could use any animal you wanted and kind of customize it. So I hope this has inspired you to look at the supplies you have in your stash and maybe build something brand new out of a bunch of dies that you have. Thanks so much for watching. Have an amazing day. Bye.